Hi, I'm Emma, and we're here today talking about Charlotte Blessing's book, New Old Shoes. So, how did you come up with the idea for the story?
Well, that's a good question, Emma. Well, I used to live in Kenya and Tanzania for many years, and I used to go to the secondhand shoe and clothing market to buy clothes and shoes for my own children, because they were growing so fast, so I couldn't keep up with getting clothes from back in America. So I would go to the secondhand markets, and when you go there, you see a section of the market is just jeans, another section is just shorts, another section are t-shirts, and these are all secondhand clothes that has mostly come from Europe or the US. Well, so I was looking at all these clothes, and later on when I moved to the US, I was thinking about, I wonder how I can tell a story that would make children here in the US learn how children in Africa sometimes have to get new clothes. And so that was really, there's a story based on how it really is in East Africa for children when they need to get new clothes. They have to go to the secondhand market and they pick out clothes that is new to them, but it's really old clothes or shoes.
Okay, so how did you come up with your characters?
Well, my character is not a person. My main character in this story is actually a pair of red shoes. And I chose the sneakers because when I moved to the US, sneakers were really popular, and I thought, well, why not use a pair of sneakers? And so the story is told from the point of view of the red sneakers. And we follow them and we see all the different kind of feet that wear this kind of pair of shoes. So the red sneakers are the main character.
Okay. Could you tell me about the pictures?
Yes. The pictures for this book, New Old Shoes, is made by Gary Phillips, and he's an illustrator who lives on the East Coast. And he actually just won a very prestigious award for his illustrations. So I was very excited that he was making the illustrations. Now, when you write a book, a picture book, the writer doesn't get to choose who illustrates the book. So I had written all the words in the story, and the publisher then had this illustrator working with their publishing house. They asked Gary to make the illustrations. He made a draft of the illustrations just in pencil. Then by email I received a draft of all the illustrations, and I looked through them, and there was a few things that I thought, not quite right, not quite what I had in mind. But see, Gary has never been to Africa, so he had to learn what a market would look like. He had to learn about, for example, here, this soccer ball is made out of plastic bags. He had to study what the trees looked like. And he did really good. But so when I looked at the draft drawings, I decided, oh, there's a few things to change. So I sent him my comments and he made changes. Then he added in the coloring, and then he sent me the final version. And I thought, that looks really nice. So in general, other children, when I have read in classes, they really like the illustrations and they ask me if I like them, and I do. I think they're very colorful, very beautiful. And if you ask me which illustration is my favorite, I'd like to show that, because I do have one. I like this one with the chick in the shoe. I like this one. And I've actually seen that happen. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Good.
So could you tell me about the Soulful Souls program?
Yes. Well, they are really expanding Soulful Souls. So Soulful Souls was started by a man who was working in the shoe business. So he was already familiar with selling and buying shoes. But I think it was after the big hurricane that hit New Orleans some years ago, or it's many years now. He started collecting shoes that could be sent to New Orleans, to all the people that were homeless or had lost everything in the hurricane. And it was such a popular idea that he did, and he had more shoes. So now the program has expanded. They're actually sending shoes to Africa after the big earthquake in Haiti. They've been sending a lot of shoes to Haiti. And now they are also beginning actually to do the same with collecting secondhand clothes. And they will be sending used clothes to places that have had natural disasters, where children and adults suddenly have lost everything that they had. And that's the way, so he can send it out that way. So it's really a growing program.
Okay. Why do you believe it's a good charity?
Well, you know, I think I lived in Africa for 14 years, and I saw so many children, especially, who didn't have shoes or still don't have shoes. To go to school in most places in Africa, you have to have shoes. You will not be allowed in school if you don't have shoes. So children that come from very poor families that can't afford more than maybe 1 or 2 pairs of shoes for everybody to share, the children can't go to school. So I think this particular organization is trying to help out with sending shoes abroad that really can help out children, for example, who really wants to go to school, but they can't go to school because they don't have shoes.
So what made you want to become a writer?
Well, I've always, since I was a little child, a little girl, I read a lot. I read a lot as a kid. I loved reading, and I would often in the winter, I'm from Denmark, and in the winter it's pretty cold and dark, and in the weekend I just loved to snug in bed and just read all day in bed. So I always enjoyed reading. And then when I had my first child, it's about 12 years ago, I suddenly had a lot more time on my hands. I was living in Tanzania, and I started writing. And I really enjoyed it, and I knew I wanted to write stories for children. And I started out writing short stories for children that has been published in the Spider magazine and Highlights for Children, those kind of magazines. And then I started writing full picture book stories as well. And I just like sharing with children how children in other places of the world live, that what are the similarities and what are the differences. So that's why I keep writing.
So are you working on any other stories right now?
I am. I'm working on a middle grade novel. It's called Prison Island, and it's set in Zanzibar, and it's about a girl who discovers that someone is stealing or something is happening to some very giant Aldabra tortoises that live on this little island in Zanzibar. So it's kind of an eco-adventure mystery story. But I'm also writing on a picture book that is called Flip Flop Flapulous, which is about a picture book story about flip-flops.
So what's that? I see it's something out of paper bags.
Yes, this is something some children did together in a read aloud session. This is an attempt to make a soccer ball out of plastic bags. And it might be a little bit hard to see, but it is actually a ball, and it is nice and round. And we made that because a lot of children in Africa, they love soccer. That's a very popular sport. But they can't necessarily afford to buy a real leather soccer ball. So they use what they have around them. And there are lots of plastic bags hanging in trees, sticking on the thorn trees, or just sort of flying on bushes. So the children collect the plastic bags, they flatten them out, make them long and squish out the air, and then they start rolling off a plastic bag on top of the next plastic bag, and they tie knots until they come with a fairly nice sized ball. And that's what they use to play soccer with, or volleyball. So you can go home and make one of these soccer balls yourself. That's what the boy in this book does. He's playing with his soccer ball made out of plastic bags, but this one is made out of different colored plastic. But that's what a lot of children do, so I'm going to challenge you to go home and make a soccer ball. That way you always have something to do or play with if you're out somewhere and you forgot to bring a ball.
Thank you for coming and talking to us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for your great questions. I appreciated that.